biomimicry as a concept is to create an environment that's around you that is more natural of an environment as it relates to being outside. And so it is, for the lack of a better term, living in a less plastic world. And some might argue that plastic is a real product. And I think that I'm not trying to say that we don't need plastic, but I think that part of the idea is that when you make selections in materials that are in your life, that you might want to pick something that's less synthetic and something that's more natural to its original state.
Welcome to Luxury Outdoor Living Podcast with Mike
and Trey Farley
of Farley Pool Designs. For over 40 years, we've helped homeowners turn their backyards into personal retreats. And that's why after decades of designing and teaching in this industry, we're here to share our knowledge, helping you navigate the process with confidence.
Every week we break down design, trends, and insider tips that turn your vision into reality. We'd love to have you along for the ride.
Let's build your paradise together. It's cold in Texas. And this is Mike Farley from Farley Pool Designs, and we are literally freezing here.
Oh, yeah. Probably not as cold as it is for our guest who's from Nashville, but once it's below about 50 degrees in Texas, everyone freaks out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, at least we don't have snow this week.
No snow. We'll see about Nashville. Maybe they do.
Yeah, they probably do. So it's going to be a good podcast. We're going to talk a little more about wellness in a general situation. We're going to be diving into wellness in very specific episodes upcoming of some different features. But, Paul spoke at the International Pool Show, and on this particular topic, he attended a class that I was in, which was a full day-long class on wellness as well. So he's going to bring some really interesting things for us to consider and think about.
Perfect. Let's get started.
You are our first return guest.
No way, Mike. I don't believe that. I need to see documentation.
It is true. It is true. So, that's what happens when you're a multi-talented individual and can teach about lots of subjects, right?
Well, thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. And I think this is I read your talking points. Is a great topic. I think it's definitely we're on the horizon for new value add stuff for our industry. So it's very topical. And it's you sat in on the class in Dallas with Maria. Yeah. So two very influential people that will help kind of continue to shape what this industry is relative to both the technical side and the design and aesthetic side, for sure.
Well, it's just, I think that there's so much that we can provide as an industry that the homeowners aren't aware of. And my whole philosophy is, give people information, let them decide what they want to do. And
amen.
Try to help guide them to create what's best for them. Okay. And the fun of the adventure is that means it's different every single time because people want to go in different directions. And so yes. I think the more people can get information about things, the better that they can make those decisions. And so, you taught a class as well on wellness at the International Show. So I would like to just start and just say, what do you think is for the consumer? Because that's who this podcast is basically going out to. Is what should they look at into creating their environment in their backyard? Or, it doesn't even necessarily have to be in the backyard. There are people that are making wellness retreats and they're turning a bedroom into a wellness space. And then, how can we add to that in the backyard space, and how can we be involved in what would you, if you were, the one thing I want to take out of it is everybody's talking about cold plunges. Okay. So Well, let's not deal with cold plunge.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But let's talk about other stuff that, that could fit into making a family's wellness center. I'll let you start and kind of we'll go from there.
I am 100%, as you know, completely biased when it comes to the world that I talk about, because I'm going to talk about fundamentally architecture, because that's the world that I live in. Sure. And I think that architecturally, and if you've seen my presentation on why architecture matters, is that the built environment, no matter what it is, has an effect on us, right? And I think that, I'm going to build on the point that you talk about, like wellness in relationship to somebody's bedroom. So, I think that there's a sliding scale of what people can do right now today to increase their ideas of wellness. And then obviously it trickles into very active processes to, influence a greater scope of how the world of wellness can affect them. So as a profession, my profession has basically taken the impetus to deal with wellness from our senses, okay, which is sight, sound, smell, touch, hearing, all of those things. So if you start to think about the world that you live in relative to your senses, you immediately, if you can manage the world in just managing sound, for example, that can affect the way that you see the world. And it could be in the simple sense of, like, at night when you go to bed, what's one of the most pleasurable sounds to hear when you're at night in bed is the sound of the ocean. So, which that can eliminate all kinds of street noise, that can eliminate all kinds of things. So the idea that you can kind of start to affect yourself in a very easy and simple way. Now,
my grandson really likes that too. He has a sound machine that his parents use with him. He's 3 years old, so he gets to listen to the ocean every night. So,
and another good one. Oh, my bad. But another good one is rain, and it's not a source of water.
Yeah, for sure. Which I think that, the idea that, obviously we're in the pool world. I think one of the things that next to sound is light and daylight. Those are probably the two fundamental things that you as a human, if you address those two things, your life will be different. And that, there are so many studies that are out there that students do so much better in school when they have access to natural light, however that is. But I think that if you think about sound, you think about light, and then I think our relationship to water is the game changer for how you can feel better in your day. And, I talk about, in the presentation that you saw in Dallas was, blue mind theory, right? There's such a spectrum of blue mind theory that can go from, obviously immersing yourself in water into some sort of hyperbaric chamber, or if you go into some sort of, sound deprivation chamber. That's one end, or going and swim in the ocean. But they also talk about the power of just concentrating, of drinking a glass of water. And, the therapeutic effects of, like, hey, if you concentrate in drinking a glass of water, and if you're having an incredible stressful moment and you focus on drinking that glass of water, and if that's all that you focus on, by the time you get to the end of drinking that glass of water, you will feel automatically better. Now, is that a metaphysical state, or is that a therapeutic state, or is it all of those things that are bound together?
Water's a powerful thing.
Yeah. And so to think about, like, just as, for me, the ability to talk about with your clients that if they're going to make an effort to change their environment, if they can focus on some of those sight, sound, smell, touch, and if they focus on those items, and if they really concentrate on those particular items, and there are obviously, 15 years ago, the LEED accreditation for buildings, green building, put an emphasis in the market to eliminate VOCs from the majority of the materials that we deal with, right?
Right.
And for those that are out there that don't know what VOCs are, volatile organic compounds, which commonly, ironically, is, oh, it's new car smell, or man, this house smells, remarkably fresh and clean because it's just been painted, or man, this new carpet smells great. All of those things are actually terrible for us, but they represent, something that's new. But those things, if you start to, we don't have to worry about that too much now. The volatile, all of those kind of things have kind of gone by the wayside because the market has shifted. But, we talk about biomimicry and the choices that we get to make for material selection. So all of that stuff becomes super important for taking control over your idea of what wellness is and how you can do it. Some of it is, we'll call it gross, like the fact of, picking particular wellness therapies that you can incorporate into a project. But I think it also can be as subtle and as very deliberate as picking the materials for what it is that you're doing. I mean, that's my intro to what I think that it doesn't have to be something that's so disparate of a like, oh, we're going to do wellness and we're going to go down this road. I think it's like it's built into the process, baked into it.
Right. There's a lot of integral pieces that from subtle to, pronounced that can all have an effect on what we're going to feel in the space we're going to live in.
Yeah. When you go to a spa, they have certain materials to soothe your experience. It's not like you just have like a shack with like a sauna and then a mud bath in one corner. It's all it's a huge puzzle.
Well, and it's a very choreographed kind of experience, right? I mean, it's like, when you come in, what are you hearing? What are you smelling? What is this, what is it? What's the temperature? What does it feel like in the space? All of those little subtle pieces, at notable spas, they're things that you can really understand, and it's a difference, right? The thing about going to a spa that is different than your daily life is oftentimes it's so dramatically different, right? Because your life is nothing like that in your house or anything. And then when you go to this thing, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is like this is so dramatically different. Well, yeah, because half the time when you're at home, it's, the floor's too cold and somebody's screaming in the background, and, you all you want to do is have 5 minutes to take a shower. So that's why the spa is so unique.
So are there particular materials that you think create that effect?
I don't want to call it a trend because it's, for us, can talk about trends and the difference between a trend versus a style shift or a fad. He's fantastic at that. But I think the method that is one step farther to picking materials in any kind of project that are different than, say, 10 or 15 years ago, biomimicry as a concept is to create an environment that's around you that is more natural of an environment as it relates to being outside. And so it is, for the lack of a better term, living in a less plastic world. And some might argue that plastic is a real product. And I think that I'm not trying to say that we don't need plastic, but I think that part of the idea is that when you make selections in materials that are in your life, that you might want to pick something that's less synthetic and something that's more natural to its original state. So, for example, if you're picking a tile coping, you might want to pick a tile coping that's maybe a natural stone, and that the deck material that you're sitting on or sunbathing on might be a wood product rather than a synthetic wood product. I mean, I know that there are obviously benefits to having composite wood decking material, and it's good that some of the wood decking material has wood in it, but I think that there are some selections about those subtle things that you experience that should be more natural. And I think the biomimicry kind of theory wants you to pick materials that are less manipulated. I mean, there's a whole movement in the food industry now about, kind of a shift away from not just processed foods, but ultra processed foods. And eating foods that are, there's the raw food movement or the slow food movement or any of those things. And I think that biomimicry, the built environment world, has a way to plug into that, just like some of these other trends that are happening that, we don't need to be exposed to as much. One of the takeaways that I learned from the seminar in Dallas is that Maria said that when you get in a pool and you stay in a pool for, a certain period of time, that your body, your skin absorbs, up to a liter of water when you're in that pool. And so, when you're in that pool, the water and the chemicals that are in that pool that you manage the chemistry of your pool, you ingest that and you absorb it through your skin. So wouldn't you think that naturally what you're putting into your pool isn't something, if you're in it for 20 or 30 minutes, what is that bringing into your body? How do you feel about what that is?
Right.
So
what chemicals are you digesting? Because you're actually, the type of water chemistry that you've created, whether it's, something with ozone or, something that's, more natural or more chemical based. So anyway,
if it's UV treated, or if it's gone through a certain level of filters, or, in Maria's case, she's talking about biopools where, the actual natural environment through, a retention pond is filtering water.
Right.
Yeah.
The vegetation in the media, gravel media, is the natural filtration process.
Yeah. And then the bugs and the birds in this thing are the things that are, taking advantage of, the whatever's moving through that ecosystem. So
I was gonna ask, what was the pretty much the replacement for chlorine and ozone, but that makes sense. The bugs.
Well, I mean, I think that, Joel Eric kind of outlined a couple. I mean, he has very sophisticated systems that he had put in place that manage and treat water. And I think that it's a multi-stage process. UV obviously is being one that's takes advantage of that process. And, using geothermal to heat and cool, and using, less, technical or artificial products to heat and cool your water, become, there's energy that gets built in that process. I mean, the exact science, I mean, Joe Eric did a fantastic job. There was lots of chemistry. There was lots of, and I did not do well in chemistry. Lots of diagrams of exactly what does this to do that to then, make the water a better place to be, would be one of the things that I think that he as a resource would be a great way to think about, like, the super specifics to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that the pool industry is shifting away from, kind of the heavily chlorinated pools and kind of moving away. I mean, the salt type is also super important, and now that ozone is becoming an important factor. So, I mean, it's the evolution of a technology that I think is, in my mind, is very successful, and in the end, the owner and the experienced person gets to take advantage of it.
It is a lot better environment to swim in than what I swam in the 70s. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, I'm lucky I have any hair on my body from my experiences of the late 70s and early 80s and I'm lucky I have skin too, which is the sun in that situation. I probably wore sunscreen maybe 3 times the entire time between the ages of 10 and 16.
Me too. Yeah. I think it's interesting because with the point you made with, like, your skin absorbing almost like drinking water, like a liter of water, that definitely makes you if you think about that before you go in to pick materials, it definitely would, you'd pick more natural, I would assume, materials. But then again, the synthetic materials, they probably don't flake, and they don't, less, I don't know, material would leak out into the water, I would assume, with like a synthetic wood. I don't know.
Like a porcelain.
Well, I mean,
Like a porcelain, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that I'm not advocating that you can't have a vinyl liner pool, right? I mean, that's a vinyl liner pool is. I mean, I'm not here to try to poo-poo that experience, but that's a highly industrialized product. Fiberglass is the same thing, right? They're when they make it to your site, they're relatively inert, right? I mean, they're I mean, obviously leaching of vinyl or fiberglass. I mean, I don't know what that is, but that's what water treatment's for, and that's where where you can kind of one thing that we're glad that doesn't happen with a pool is pools don't burn. That they don't catch fire. At least I know that's not a big problem. Whereas if you have a building and you wrap it in vinyl siding and it catches fire, that's a big problem. I mean, burning vinyl or burning materials that are like that are incredibly toxic. So I mean, I think that there is the idea of the final end state of a material. I mean, I do a little bit worry about decking material, like wood decking material, and there's cool decking and there's materials that are on the market. I do have a little bit of curiosity of what that's going to be like in 10 years, because that stuff is it off gases. It constantly, if you're especially in a situation like you guys in Texas where it gets really hot, and what's coming up off the surface of that. We all know that asphalt as a surface, when it gets hot, is incredibly toxic and noxious. So those are environmental conditions that, I mean, concrete has its problem because it's has a carbon footprint that's really bad. And I'm not here to talk about politics or the idea of what the embodied energy of things are, but it does have it does make a difference for those choices that you make and how to utilize them in your backyard. And I'm not trying to advocate for a super reduced carbon footprint kind of environment. I'm just saying that I think sometimes you need to be aware of some of those choices that you make in order to, impact your environment in a way that's, I think is good.
I'll definitely stay away from the asphalt around the swimming pool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's I think those are there's certain areas that I'm sure that's cachet, but I haven't found one yet.
Yeah. You never know though. There's probably one out there. You being an architect, I'm sure you've put a lot of saunas in buildings before, in houses.
Yeah,
it is a big trend now.
It is, and so it's funny. I'm not going to talk about cold plunges because that is I've got a project that's going through permitting right now that we did an addition off the back of their house, and that they have a special area that is of sauna cold plunge area that's built into their house. We talked about cold plunges a lot the last podcast. That's kind of why we didn't talk about saunas much at all, and we would love to talk about them. So saunas, I think, are one of those things that oftentimes, I don't want to say gets VE'd out of a project, but oftentimes when it's at the beginning of the project, it is a built-in component to the job. And then oftentimes as it gets farther down, it doesn't get VE'd out, but it becomes, we're going to just buy this appliance and we're going to have an area dedicated with it. And then we're just going to plug it in. So, the benefits of a sauna, I think, experientially and physiologically are huge. The details of what type and how to detail it and where it goes, those are the challenges of a project that I think become really important, because I think you have to be very committed to certain aspects of a sauna. If it's going to be a situation that it's an infrared sauna and it's going to have that it's not going to be, it's going to be like an appliance that you're just going to plug in, then it's a situation that you're like, okay, hey, we're going to just put we're going to dedicate a circuit. We're going to put it in the part of the expression. It's going to go in the basement, and it's going to be in, an area right next to the workout area or something. And it's going to, it's going to be little commitment versus, a wet or dry sauna that is, a much more impactful commitment that has a much more climactic difference in a house or outside of a house. There are all kinds of details that you have to really think about relative to where that's going to go, because people think that, oh, it's just going to be like the infrared sauna. You're just going to stuff it in the corner, but it needs to be, climactically very managed. And I think that in relationship to outdoor living, I think it's an amazing thing to actually include in your outdoor living space, because it works as an architectural element in an outdoor living environment. And it also kind of works as like a mini house, in the sense that it can be its own thing. And, it can be, you can use it dry, or you can use it wet, or you can have, it can be a little bit larger in scale, and it can be much more experiential rather than, some of these things look like a telephone booth that you go and stand in, and you're like in timeout while you get hot, right? I mean, the kind of part of the experience of a good sauna, or a steam room for that matter. Steam showers are another huge component that I oftentimes design in people's homes, because they're like, oh, we got to have a steam shower. And I'm like, equally as beneficial as a sauna, and in a kind of I mean, there's some very important details that you need to do for doing a steam shower, but I think that's a different kind of pendulum that is part of the wellness world, that I think that it's you can be in a micro environment, take a shower that's very, very cold, and then all of a sudden turn on the steam shower, and within a very short period of time you're in that kind of hot cold dynamic, which is, I think, really the cold plunge. I think the real wellness benefit that I think really people overlook is the fact that it's not just the cold plunge, it's the relationship of the cold plunge to the sauna that really takes the benefit for your wellness system, not just the cold plunge. So if you don't have the heat component, then it doesn't have as much of a wellness benefit like just a cold plunge.
Yeah, that rush from heating up all the way up to your top, whatever it is, you heat it up to like 185. Some people do like 205. It's then that dramatic contrast to going to the cold plunge is a lot more significant than just going to the cold plunge every day and that's it.
That's right. And I think that where a lot of people, especially, I'm going to blame the CrossFitters, because the CrossFitters are the ones that really kind of latched onto this, because they go and they work out and they're like super jacked on, doing, 75 toes to bar in a certain period of time. And then their body's still so intense. And then they have the opportunity to go to a cold plunge. Their internal body temperature is really high, and then they can get some benefit to that. But I think that the real relationship, and you asked about Asia and Europe and kind of talking points. Europe has been doing the cold and hot therapy for hundreds of years before we've just now created it into a fad. Yeah. And that's the Scandinavians in Scotland and the Scandinavians and the Scots and the Belgians and the Swiss, they've been doing this kind of therapy for a really, really long time.
Romans.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, the idea of then there's I talk about it in one of my, intro to wellness stuff that I've done for Genesis, is like the relationship to water has been, I kind of refer to it as the great forgetting, right? We just have we forget that, there's these kind of, I don't want to say primal, but there are some really simple things that we constantly forget. And, going for a 5-minute walk and standing in the sun is a way better way to clear your head than anything, just to be outside and get fresh air. But those are, but that concept of, the Europeans thinking about the relationship to wellness and body wholeness is not new to them, and is definitely something that relationship, it's a relationship of hot and cold. And if you don't take the it's a little one-sided here because we're fascinated with the cold plunge, but I think that the benefits for doing both is essential. And I think that if when you're talking about backyards for people, and if they're looking for cold plunge, that I think that you really kind of need to kind of coach them to thinking about the real benefits being a sauna component too, or some sort of heat therapy to kind of make that transition, make that relationship really work.
Well, a lot of people have the hot tub, the spa. I mean,
yeah.
So they have that's very common. So I think that's why a lot of people have adapted the cold plunge, because they already have the hot, and so they can go to the cold. But the sauna is different than a hot tub.
Totally.
Way hotter too. Yeah, it's a dry heat.
Yeah. Well,
and your endocrine system is totally overdrive when you're in, you're in this, your body is sweating, it's pushing out toxins that are in your system, and it's a game changer for that. I mean, a hot tub is great. I mean, the therapy of a hot tub, and the idea of like what it does. I think the hot tub in itself as a single thing is a great therapeutic kind of approach. But I think if you're going to go into the world of wellness, I think it's literally a hot cold relationship.
And you're going to get a better hot cold relationship with a sauna cold plunge than you are with a hot tub.
Yeah.
I want to talk about you mentioned the layout and how some of these look like telephone booths. I think it's hilarious, because when I first was introduced to a sauna was when I went to like LA Fitness, and I just sat there, and then obviously there's like 12 guys around me. We're all using it. So I'm just sitting there. But the proper way to use a sauna is actually you lay down on the bench and you cook. Like you actually just cook there.
It's like smoke. You're like smoking yourself like a piece of salmon.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you can't do that in a telephone booth, I want to make that point.
Some of the things too is, I mean, some of the saunas are designed so you've got this piece of glass so you can look out and enjoy the space that's outside of it as well. It's not just about, sitting in there and sweating. It's about, the setting that you've created and what you put it in so you can enjoy the space. I mean, so that's one of the things that, if you get a little bit larger sauna, you got a little bit more glass to look at. You got more of the garden and setting to look at. And that's part of the wellness journey as well.
Yeah, one of my dream features on like my dream pool, if I could just have as much money as I wanted to throw into a pool, was I saw something on Instagram one time, and it was a swim up or swim into sauna. So you could like swim from the pool into the floor of the sauna. And it had like glass on all four sides. I don't know how well that would work because you need the wood component as well. But still, it's really cool.
Well, and I mean, I think if you've seen, if we can dream it up, somebody's going to be able to follow through and build it, right? I mean, I think that's part of it. But I mean, I think you also bring up an important point about the benefit of a sauna is the idea that you're prone, right? Like you're completely relaxed, right? You're on your back, and that you're letting this temperature and everything kind of wash all over you, and you're not in any kind of strain, right? Like you're not like sitting hunched over, or it's a relaxation state. And so I think that's part of, it's much a psychological experience too, because you just want to just focus on being in that moment. And there are other, so we're talking about the relationship hot cold plunge, right? But I think that there are other therapies that are out there that are just cold focused, like cryotherapy, which is a different type of wellness therapy, which has I mean, they all have medical benefits, but like cryotherapy in specific is a type of therapy that is targeted for a particular condition. Say, for example, you have knee pain or back pain, or you have some sort of a circular system kind of condition. That the temperature difference from being at 72 degrees inside the room where you put on your little booties or whatever, and then go into this freezer chamber with your head sticking out, which is like from a 70s cartoon. You go in there and this thing, the temperature drops to such a low level that your body goes into almost like a form of shock, because you don't have the ability to kind of like, I mean, you go in and drop in an ice bath. It's like half the battle is the psychological experience of like, okay, I'm going to get in that thing and I know it's going to be really cold, versus getting in a cryotherapy situation where it's like, okay, you're going to get in this thing and it's like a light, like it's like boom, all of a sudden you're in this experience and it's like takes your breath away. But it is meant to, it has incredible benefits for rheumatoid arthritis, any kind of inflammation in joints. I mean, there are real significant medical benefits to that particular therapy, which isn't necessarily paired with the sauna condition. It's just a therapy that people, they get significant subscriptions, and they go through, you can get a prescription from your doctor to then get some of this, cryotherapy managed. So
I always thought cryotherapy was interesting because the first time I heard about it was when LeBron James was talking about his diet and his regimen, and it just kind of got really popular after that, I think. And Tom Brady did too. So some of the best athletes that were the best athletes at old age and the professional stints they had both used it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Trey. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I mean, I mean, I think that there is for an athlete that's playing and competing at a particular level, for a consistent amount of time, yes, my guess is that they're gonna need something like that just to continue to perform at a particular level. The cryotherapy is great for people that, like I said, that have rheumatoid arthritis, that are just looking for some relief
from the pain.
Can you put one of those in the backyard?
I've not done any cryotherapy. I think those are just themselves are 6-figure items, and I would think that the power control for something like that would also be relatively significant.
And then hiring staff to control everything.
Well, yeah, and then there's also the therapeutic effect for that I'm sure that there's somebody there with dials that have to be, very particular about what you're doing.
That's what wellness centers are for. So you can go experience those things and not have to put it in your backyard. But, that's becoming more and more of a thing, is commercial wellness centers in the U.S. So
for sure.
Versus, like you said, in Europe, it's been going on for hundreds of years. I mean, I can't think of a single, I can't think of many cases here in the U.S. that's been the case. There have been some hotels I know that have developed wellness centers that are fairly well known for their product that they have, but not a common situation.
Well, one of the things that's historically been a bit unique in the United States have been natural phenom, right? In the sense that there are places, I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to go to Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Yes.
Where that was a destination for people that were traveling across the country in kind of like to call it the olden days. When they would travel by train, they would stop and they would get off in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And there was a whole collection of hotels that were there that were in the basement. They had hot spring spa-like experiences that you could go and it was geothermal kind of baths that you could go to that were all based directly coming from, the area that was there. And it was the southern Missouri, Arkansas, into there. I'm sure there's parts of Texas that it's called karst topography, which is a layered limestone that has water trapped in between it, and depending on where it is in the strata of the earth, it can be hot. And so what happens is it's a natural geothermal kind of experience. So that's probably naturally in the U.S. one of the kind of the first areas that and there's other places in the country that have that.
Right. There's one of the, I can't remember the name of the hotel, was where they built the first hot springs. It was actually in, I think I want to say Pennsylvania, early on. But I mean, we've backpacked for a long time, and when we come out, we always go to Pagosa Springs in Colorado.
Sure.
Because of the springs that are there, and that's a pretty elaborate setup now.
Always smells like sulfur.
Versus what it was when we first started going there 30 years ago. So anyway, but there's a lot of natural things that have evolved that people take, and apply. So that's
used in Japan as well.
I was going to say the Asian wellness situation is a little bit different than the European, in the fact that they embrace a lot of more of the natural aspects of it. I mean, anyway, they're kind of a different mindset and philosophy. But anyway, both can create a lot of different things for homeowners.
Yeah, I would, on my bucket list, and I'd be fully transparent. On my bucket list is to go to Asia. I really want to go to Japan. And one of the differences culturally that I think from Western European mindset and ideology versus an Asian one is the ritual component of the wellness side of their culture, where whatever they're interacting with, if it's a tea ceremony or if it's something that has great importance, they focus and they ritualize that experience slightly differently than kind of the Western side of that mentality. And I think that sometimes that ritual of a process of a series of steps to deal with the notion of experiencing something, I think is a way that culturally is different than a kind of a Western approach.
They are different in how they approach things. From they look at herbs and teas and oils and all kinds of treatments with that. They look at massage, yoga. I mean, that's all a little bit different philosophy.
I'm curious, being an architect, do you ever design specific spaces for yoga for a customer that might?
Yeah. So I haven't done I do commercial work too. So it's not just I haven't had the pleasure of doing a yoga studio yet. I've done a lot of different things. One of the things that I just completed and it's just opened is an actual cold plunge, hot sauna facility, and there have been multiple that have opened up recently in Nashville that I think are less of a lifetime fitness approach and more towards a kind of a spa, full body kind of mind, therapy experience. And I think that body movement, like, which is the yoga studio is really, and meditation, are two components that I think are part of the wellness journey. That I think that it's kind of like what I said at the beginning of our conversation, which is like, here, you have an opportunity to control your environment. Maybe it's very, very simple in your house to maybe pick a location that has the best light that comes in. And maybe you have an area that's super clear and clean, clutter free, that it gives you a place to either practice yoga or just meditate. And I think that movement, and this is kind of part of the thing about, if you think about the origins of yoga, Tai Chi, other movement oriented kind of experiences, it is very ritualized in the sense that it's about the experience of going to a place. And if you see people in Japan experiencing a type of Aikido, which is a type of, choreographed kind of movement, it's pretty remarkable because they may do the same set of movements over the period of 6 months, but they're constantly trying to sharpen what that experience is like because it's a part of their mind and their movement and their body, and they're hyper focusing on it. And I think that those and their environment that's around them. So it's I think a yoga studio, a meditation space, and any of those things become super, super important. And I like to commodify it all the time with my clients. It's like if I just met with some clients this morning, we're going to do a custom house. They want to do a pool and this and that. And I'm, basically some of their homework originally is like, where in the morning do you like to just sit, be quiet, and have a cup of coffee? What is that moment like? Let's think about that for a second. Let's let that be the driving force versus the house has got to have an island. It has to have a working pantry, and think about the moment, right? I mean, think about not the things, but the process or the ritual that you want to really fully achieve.
The setting.
I don't know if that answers your question, Trey.
No, that helps. And that's an interesting philosophy too, because obviously humans are like creatures of habit. So starting off at the beginning of your day is a great way to start off the process of
how do you end it too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, and then I think like, when you're designing a pool, I think you a great thing to think about is that obviously there's the vessel itself, but it's what are the activities that potentially could happen around the perimeter of the pool, right? Like, I think it's amazing to think that you would have this great indoor space that overlooks your pool, and then an area where, like, in the mornings, like, you could come out and just do a whole series of stretches for 20 minutes. I mean, that.
And enjoy the water and the view.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah. The temperature of the day, the sounds of the day, the smells of the day. I mean, it's,
all those senses.
Yeah. Yeah. When I took a class as an undergrad that I'll never forget the class. It was a site design class, and the teacher for the class was there were two professors. One was very, I'm going to use the word romantic, and the other one was very technical. So they kind of played against each other really, really uniquely. And one of the things that the technical guy said one day, which was a kind of an icebreaker, kind of to me was kind of like, oh, this is an interesting twist, was that there's benefit for the natural feeling of cooling if you're in an incredibly hot environment and you hear the sound of running water. Just the sound of water hitting water, it has a natural cooling effect. You don't have to be anywhere close to it, but it's the sound of it that makes it automatically has a therapeutic cooling effect. And so that in itself, I mean, when you think about it, think about like sitting outside of a fountain and you hear the water rushing and it kind of is enveloping, and it's therapeutic. So imagine not having to actually get in the pool, but being able to hear the water running at a pool.
It also might be like the psychology, because like when you're around water, typically it's colder in that area, like by a lake or a pool. So like you hear that water and it's like a placebo effect almost.
Yeah, for sure.
Your typical Mediterranean courtyard, what did it always have?
Absolutely, a fountain in it. Yeah,
it had a fountain in it. And that was a very arid, dry space typically.
Yeah, and really hot typically.
Yeah, so here's the cooling effect that we can enjoy. And all the rooms face into it. So,
yeah. Plus, it makes a great effect for when you want to have that vanishing edge, right? You see all that. Yeah, it kind of creates that nice opportunity.
So you mentioned that you would like to travel to Japan. So have you been to Europe or any parts of Asia and experienced the wellness and the aspects there?
So my travels, I think I have been to every state in the United States except for Maine, and I think North Dakota. Those are the two that I haven't been, and Alaska. If you want to, I mean, that's if I think of continental. So there's 3 states that are still on my list, and in Europe, I have I have not been to Portugal, but I've been to Spain and Italy and France. My father was French, so the first time that I've been to France was when I was 5. So my extensive travels throughout France and Great Britain. I've been to Norway. All the kind of I've been to Prague, Czechoslovakia. I don't know. It's been throughout Germany, Italy, Greece is on my list. And I've been extensively through South America. I've been to Peru and Bolivia, and
Oh wow.
and I think that, and I'm trying to think of I have not been to Mexico. I'm trying to think if there's any place that's around in there that I've been to that I would count. And so I think one of the things that's really interesting about traveling, I mean, traveling is amazing because it opens your eyes up to so much. Subtle cultural differences, if you're willing to look at them as beauties rather than difficulties. I realize the reason I say that is traveling to Peru and Bolivia was a radically different life experience than I have been to anywhere else. So it's such a dramatic cultural shift than Europe or anywhere in the United States. And the experience with the built environment is so different. I feel like where I went in Bolivia and Peru, it is so much more simple as a place. And you feel it's like, I feel like sometimes in the developed world we overcomplicate things. And that's I mean, some of the hotels that I stayed in Bolivia, it was like literally there was no, like, my hotel room was a place that I slept, and like I had a basin of water in my room. I didn't have a sink and a faucet. I just had a basin of water that I could use to, wash my hands or brush my teeth or do whatever. And then when I would leave, they would come and they'd swap that out. I mean, ideally, you were drinking that. But that's a kind of a fundamental thing. If you think about wellness as as an infrastructure, because wellness, it's an infrastructure, right? Think about the universe that you're in as an infrastructure, and you're thinking about, like, when I used to teach at the university level, I always used to think about, like, when you walk over to the faucet and you turn on the faucet, where do you think that water comes from? Well, people are like, oh, well, it comes from the faucet. And I'm like, yeah, I get it comes from the faucet, but where does it come from? Like, how far did that drop of water travel to get to your sink?
The system.
And they would be like, I don't know. It just came from somewhere. And I think that as a question becomes, when I went to this hotel and I was standing there, I was like thinking, I'm like, okay, that water, where is it coming from?
They give you
right?
a pitcher to pour into the bowl, right?
Right. And where did that pitcher come from in relationship to, did it come from a cistern? Was it collected from the rain? Did it come from a well that came out of the ground? I mean, and listen, it's a part of the world where, I drank more beer than I have in any other part of the world, because, you're not eating. And when they say don't drink the water, they mean don't drink the water, because it's the flora and fauna that live in that water is not something that you and I and anyone on this podcast your body would acclimate to. So, but it's something that's different. But we just, I hate to say it, we all take for granted, just like, hey, putting on a faucet and we got water to drink. So it's just that kind of, as travel. Your question about going to places and seeing things or doing things that are different, that's one of those things that was significant to me, was this thinking about taking a moment going, okay, this is different, right? So, and it was a luxury too. That's the other thing, is in this hotel, right? I mean, if you're thinking about somebody coming and taking care and doing this basin thing, is a kind of a luxury, right? It's a hotel, it's a guest.
When your travels all in Europe, Was there any place that you got to experience some of their wellness establishments?
So a little bit of the unfortunates of some of a lot of my travel in Europe.
You were young.
Some of it is what's that?
You were young though too.
Yeah, well, yeah, and but some of it too is I was visiting family, so the idea of going to like the idea of a retreat is less so. But I think one of the things that traveling, one of the last things I did when I was teaching is took a group of students to Spain, and we traveled for 8 weeks through lots of different places in Spain.
Oh, wow.
And I think that the biggest, I think, takeaway from Spain in particular is the cultural difference of what it's like, of the pace that they live, which is very similar to the pace that Italians kind of emulate some of what the French do, but the Spanish kind of do it very, very different than other parts of Europe.
How so?
And well, so they have a workday that doesn't start at 8 a.m. It starts at roughly 9 or 10 o'clock, and then it goes to about 2 o'clock, and then the world shuts down. And when I mean shuts down, I mean shuts down. I mean, it's like you go and either they go home to eat, or they go to a restaurant, or that there's a gap in the day that it could be an hour, it could be 2 hours, where they have a meal. And you can, it's some might call it a siesta, some might call it, but it's a very pronounced portion of the day that they're just going to take a break, and then 2 o'clock on, they'll work till 8 o'clock at night. And then the end of the evening, they'll go into the evening. But it's a very culturally kind of methodology about the very deliberate way of living that is not about the immediacy of the situation. Obviously people work and they do their things, and you go to commerce happens, but I think of it as a pronounced way of wellness. I mean, I think that's something that we could really take advantage of as a way to be more deliberate about the way that we walk through the day. I mean, I'm not saying that we got to get up at 10 and take a break, but I think it's less of, I'm guilty of it all day. I sit, and half the time I have a sandwich at my desk, right? And I'm like trying to catch up on email.
Well, so the whole thing that I think Americans are trying to wrap their heads around is they're trying to get the health and wellness that Europe and Asia both have, and they're trying to plug an appliance in to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
Or
take a pill.
And the problem is that's not going to work. Wellness is a philosophy of life that you've got to change how you live. I mean, and part of the things that they do is how they live. Okay. And it's an extension of how they live, but I think that our goal is to help provide people better sources to do that with. And so it's great if you can have those sources in your home to be the efficient American and try to do it as quick as possible. But
yeah.
It's just philosophy. Your philosophy on some things are going to have to change.
We live in the fast food culture too. So like what you're saying, a designated time slot is crazy, because like lunch will go from 10:30 starts at Chick-fil-A all the way to probably 2:30. It just depends on the person's schedule, and then they're eating in 15 minutes as quick as possible, eating on the way to somewhere, eating at the table while you're working. That's our philosophy. It's get the deed done and continue working.
No. So
and I think that the thing that and this is a struggle, right? And to me, it's and I'm driving the struggle bus at the point of like work-life balance, right? That's always a big challenge.
Oh, I can talk about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Or the lack thereof.
Yeah.
Let me go there.
Well, and you know, and I think that I talked about it in the presentation you saw in Dallas, is that there's a wellness institute that's out there that talks about. I mean, when you say things like that, you're like, that's just ridiculous. And it's like, well, no, it's not, because we have to at some point understand the choices that we make, and how we forget, like we wander all the way down this path and we realize that, hey, this isn't healthy. And I think that the Wellness Institute diagram has broken this piece into six different components, and those different components talk about social skills and work and, you know, access to physical activity, and it's not like, okay, I'm doing these check boxes every day. It's about spirituality. It's like, how do all of these different components fit into your life to make you, you know, a well-rounded and healthy individual. And I think that you know, the challenge for me is that you talked about an appliance. You want to plug it in, like, oh, here's a wellness appliance. The part that scares me is the pill mentality, right? Like it's the I'm going to pop this thing that is, you know, I don't, if it's a, you know, elderberries, you know, what's that?
Ozempic.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, that for sure. Okay. The you know, it definitely the you know, the fix-all situation. I mean, the world is, you know, we sit and watch a television program, and you're going to get marketed to because, oh, you know, oh, I have leaky pipes. Oh dear, I must have a problem. I need to go take a pill because I have leaky pipes. It's like, okay, well, what are the leaky pipes relative to? Is it, well, maybe it's, you know, anyway. But I mean, but I think that some of it is being aware to what you're doing or what you're not doing, and I think part of it is just the ability to just take a deep breath. And I mean, if I were to have a pool, I would try to enjoy that pool as much as I can, even if it's just sitting outside with a cup of coffee, just looking at it. Right.
Well, it's I had called or texted a bunch of my clients when it snowed.
Oh, can you take some pics?
Can you send me a video of your pool in the snow? Anyway, and they were all very, they were like, it's just so peaceful and serene and everything.
Oh, yeah.
You know, sitting out here, enjoying the space, and thank you for what you created. And it's freezing outside, but they were all loving it. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was 12 degrees this morning when I met with this client out on, you know, this 28 acres to look at this plot of land for where this new house build is going to go. And it was cold out, but you know what? The best part was we were all standing there in the sun, and we were all kind of standing there. At one point, we're all standing in a line facing the sun because it was great, because that sun is washing over you. And it's like, you know, if the wind doesn't blow, it doesn't feel so bad out here. Right.
Oh, no. That's what's awesome about typically when we're up in Colorado is typically the sun's shining.
Yeah.
You may get, you know, a snowstorm. That's about the only time it's cloudy, but the rest of the time it's sunny, and, you know, you're outside and it's like, doesn't feel like it's 5 degrees.
Well, yeah. And the thing that's amazing about Colorado is my godchildren were born in Colorado. And so I got to spend a lot of time visiting them. It was so amazing that you could go outside and it would snow like crazy. And then like the next day you'd go outside and that sun was so intense. And then you could just go with the snow, and it was so dry. You could just like you could wave your hand and the snow would just all like fluff up into the air. And it was like, I mean, it was like true powder, like it was, you know, Candyland. That's so remarkable as an experience.
Oh yeah. I can go down that road very easy and tell lots of stories, but we'll stay on point. So, a favorite project where you incorporated wellness, the appliance in somebody's backyard.
Yeah, anything that comes to mind when you're thinking about that. Is there a job?
Yeah, so I will tell you about that commercial job. I don't really have well, I have one that's on the books right now that has a like a family room, and then it's got a sauna and a cold plunge that are associated with it, but that's ink on paper at the moment. Trying to get through codes, getting through permitting. And then I have this wellness kind of facility that it just happens to be adjacent to a yoga facility, which is what you were talking about before earlier, Trey. So it is, and it is fully realized. And I can they've just had some photographs done. I mean, I can share with you guys what that kind of experience looked like, because it's it has a group sauna as a space. It has what they call a movement space, which is not necessarily for yoga, but I think it's for stretching and for kind of meditation and mindfulness. And then they have a group plunge, and then they have then they have some individual saunas and individual plunges. So the idea is that this is a model therapy space that you can go to. They have the kind of classes, like it's more, you're like kind of signing up to go for a choreographed experience for that. So that probably is something that is the most notable project to me. And I started it just about a year ago, and it's been completed. And their opening is in a couple weeks. And their grand opening, they've had a soft opening, and it's a pretty kind of notable space and experience. So that's a commercial experience. When it comes to backyard experiences, the trend is catching traction at the moment, but it's not. I can't really say that I have much that's developed into actual experiences in the backyard, and that's probably that's probably going to be changing more and more as we go forward.
So Nashville hasn't been drawn into all the stuff that's coming from the edges of the country yet.
Well, I think it's definitely on the horizon. I mean, we got lots of people moving from California, so it's definitely a conversation at that point. So, are you guys going to the NESPA show in Atlantic City?
No. So we'll be in the Southwest show down in Houston.
Have you guys ever been to the NESPA show?
I've taught at it twice. Yeah. So that's my origin. So I grew up just up the coast there. It's where I was born.
Oh, where were you born? I didn't know you were from that part of the world.
Point Pleasant was where I was born, and I grew up in Toms River, New Jersey. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right outside of Seaside Heights.
Yeah. Okay.
Where everybody in New York City vacations.
Yeah. Well, how did you get rid of your Jersey accent?
Well, Warshin comes out some of the time. But so I'm a really twisted individual. So I lived 12 years in Jersey. Then I moved 12 years to West Texas. In Lubbock. And then I moved in 12 years and lived out in Northern California. So between all that, it kind of bounced around.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's all gone.
You talked about that job having group plunges, which the idea of it is, it makes sense. I've seen a couple of them, but I've never, like your plunge you design right next to the hot tub, that technically is a group plunge, I think.
You can put two people in it, but there's never two people in it. It's just, he goes from hot to cold.
Yeah.
Type situation.
So what's the idea behind that? Just being able to fit more bodies, or is there like a kind of a community aspect to it as well?
I think it's a bit of a community aspect to it. Okay. And I think that it's like group fitness. If you want to think about group fitness, I have never been a successful guy to go to the gym and work out on my own.
Yeah, me neither.
Like that's not me. I mean, if I'm going to the gym, I'm either playing a sport or I'm doing some activity that is going to be quasi curated for me, right? And it's I did lots of group activity, like group fitness, and it's whatever it is, if it's a 45-minute workout and there's 10 other people in there, we're all sweating through the same thing, right? It's not, it's an accountability thing. I know that my peers are going to be there, my friends are going to be there, and you can go that. And I think this idea with I think it's scale for one thing. I mean, I think it's a dollar per square foot revenue model that is going to get a certain number of people that are there. But I think it's meant to be it's a group experience that I think that if you're in a room by yourself and there's a cold plunge, I don't know if there's no accountability, I'm not going to get in it, right? Whereas if I'm with a group of people and everybody's getting in and we're going to try to hold it out and stick it out for 60 seconds or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, then we're all in there together and we're going to do it together. And I think that that there is a social component to it. And this particular facility has plugged into a huge wellness community that's in Nashville that is, it comes to sustainably grown and harvested foods. It is yoga. It is, kind of like aromatherapy. It's a huge, there's like, and I can share with you guys the website. There's a huge community of people that are all plugging into this wellness mentality. And I think that they're trying to, for lack of a better word, capture that as a thing. So it's not just like, versus the cryotherapy that we talked about before. That's like I'm going to go there because I've got a prescription and I need to go there, and that's something that I need to do.
Yeah.
Right.
That's cool.
And it's I think it's 12 by 16 is the size of the vessel that they, and the problem from a code standpoint, we're not going to get in the weeds on that, but the code standpoint of that, when you get to that size, it's no longer a personal kind of condition. It has a whole series of ADA constraints, which means you have to have a Hoyer lift, and it's, there's all, it's a.
That just reminded me of that one show Kevin Hart used to have. He might still have it, but Cold as Balls. It was hilarious, and they used to just get an ice bath together. And he would.
Oh yeah.
It was a great show.
Well, and did you see that there's a famous one where he's having a conversation with Mark Cuban?
Oh, I haven't seen that one, but yeah, he's had a lot of famous people on there.
Yeah, there's one that he has. You should watch the one with Mark Cuban.
Okay.
It's pretty amazing.
Wow.
So
cool.
So one of the things. What was that, Mike? I'm sorry.
He was just saying cool.
Yeah. The one of the things that I know that Maria talked about when we were in Dallas, which I think is, I think another component now, which is on the horizon as a component to wellness, is this idea of longevity, and the kind of the there's the immediate benefit to it, but I think there's this prolonged kind of long-term effect, which is this idea of being able to do more for longer when you take on particular habits and traits of now.
Oh, sure. Well, you're got the baby boomers that don't want to die,
Yeah.
So they're looking at everything they can to extend. And I mean, I have to be honest. I mean, I'm 62 years old. Okay. And I remember my grandfather at 63, he passed away at 63. And I look at what the life he lived and all the things that he does versus what I do. I'm living a totally different life than what he lived.
Oh, yeah. I can only imagine. Yeah.
So the thought of, I'm training right now to do a competition that I'm going to climb 29,000 vertical feet in 36 hours in June. So, out at Sun Valley, my grandfather sat in a chair and watched birds, I mean, that's
Yeah.
just not anything against him, but, from
totally different mentality, totally different. Yeah.
And he died at 63, and the joke was, they're like, wow, when the work people got together with the family people, they were like, well, we figured he'd go soon because he was just, how much he smoked. And they said, what do you mean? He didn't smoke at all. And they were like, oh, at work, he was a chain smoker. I mean, he literally lit a cigarette, put it out and light the next one, but then he would go home and he told not smoke at all, and told my mother-in-law, my grandmother, that, that the smoke smell was because everybody, back in the day, this is back in the 70s. He was like, everybody smoked in the office. So, that's why I smell like cigarettes. But, anyway, it's just different. Anyway, but what I'm going is, the baby boomers, they all want to live life, and they want to live life well in their 70s and 80s,
for sure.
and longer. So yes, the idea of wellness and longevity tying together, yes, I think there's a direct, huge correlation between that, on where we want to go and where we want to be and how active we want to be, and from a mental standpoint and a physical standpoint. And, that's where you look at also a lot of the different cultures. I mean, you look at people from Asia, as they grow older, are very mentally sharp and physically, capable, versus us Americans, especially. But anyway, and a lot of it goes to, so we're looking at all these different sources and how societies and how they've lived, and now how can we adapt these things to do better? I guess that's where my rambling's going, is, as a society, we want to do better and we want to live longer. Most definitely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I agree completely with the, what do they call the areas that are, what do they call, blue zones?
Yes.
Where there are people that are well into their hundreds that live very comfortably and very mobile, and their access to the outdoors, their diet, their mobility, all of those things become such easy integral components to their life,
Right. And a lot of those things are adaptable. And so therefore we want to try to adapt some of those things so we can do better. So me doing better means that, I get up at, 5:30 every morning, and I exercise and I walk for an hour. Okay.
That's awesome.
Did I do that a year ago? No, I did not. So am I in a lot better physical condition? Yes. So I had a lot more fun skiing this year than I did last year.
Well, and that's one of those things that I totally, over the past 18, 24 months for me, is I have to get moving again. And it's a discipline that starts to be, once you get past the commitment of fundamentally mentally doing it, and you start into it, man, the benefits it's just remarkable. The stress levels the bumps in the road don't seem as bumpy when your body's moving and running on all, in my case, 3.5 cylinders. So
yeah, it's definitely, well, if you feel better physically, you do better mentally.
Yeah.
There's no doubt there's a correlation there. So,
which I think is funny, because you were talking about how people want to have an appliance to take all these health benefits and apply it. But I mean, swimming in water is one of the best workouts you can have. And you're buoyant. It's not bad on your joints. So a lot of people can swim even in their old age. And it's by far one of the best workouts you can get, because I remember I was never a big swimmer, and I went to LA Fitness and I decided to use the pool a couple times, and I've like I just kept applying myself, and then eventually I was like, wow, this is way better than running, because I'm working on my arms or working out my chest. So yeah, it's funny how we look over swimming sometimes.
And your knees don't get pounded.
Yeah, they don't get pounded, and I can swim. It's like, it's like a 4-foot pool or whatever it is. So I can swim until like I'm like having Charlie horses and cramping up. And I can just walk out. So
yeah, less chance of dying.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, just don't do it in a 10-foot pool.
Yeah, for sure.
So in the wellness aspects, one of the things we always ask people is if they've experienced a true crime, something that they were like, I just can't believe that happened to somebody, or somebody did this or that type of thing. So I was just curious if
the true crime in the building industry is the term no maintenance.
Oh yeah. I love this. Okay.
And in my world, the world of no maintenance can come in it's a magic material. That's the thing that is the true crime in my industry. That is the snake oil of the building industry, is this idea of no maintenance. And it seems like the worst culprit of this no maintenance expression is the vinyl industry, because vinyl siding, vinyl windows, vinyl gutters and downspouts, the vinyl mesh that's in your gutter to keep the leaves out. For some reason, the vinyl industry has some sort of like secret back room where they're going to constantly, kind of unfold stuff. And we could tailor it to the pool industry, because the vinyl liner industry has their own kind of proclamations about what their benefits are. But I think that the concept that clients come to me that I want my house to be no maintenance, and I'm just like, that's ridiculous. No such thing. That is the true crime in the construction industry, that everything requires maintenance. So
amen to that.
Yeah, I agree completely. Because I don't know if you know this, but I worked on the back end for a lot of the jobs that my dad did. And this doesn't apply to his jobs. But there was certain times where like a floor system would be installed, and the customer, I don't know if it was a salesperson or they just assumed this, but they would assume there was no maintenance required because it's a floor system. And that's not the case at all. You still have to, get the leaves out of the pool. You still have to brush the pool and add chemicals. It's not a no maintenance system. It's less maintenance.
There is a word lower maintenance, but there is not a
or resilient material, right? Like, you want something that's not going to deteriorate, or that is anybody who lives in a vinyl siding house that's in a type 4 climate zone, they're pressure washing their house at some point, because mold and mildew is growing on that vinyl like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what part of maintenance that you're not doing. It's it's pretty ridiculous. So I like that component, though. I like that true crime addition to the cadre of questions. Yeah.
Well, we do have a question that we spring on everybody. Well, we want to know what your favorite book is, your favorite meal is, your favorite movie, and your favorite place to travel.
Favorite movie. I could add, that one's easy.
Okay.
Blade Runner by Ridley Scott.
Great movie.
That's all-time favorite movie. Director's cut, original cut, whatever it is, best cinematographic, like all of it together. Like that's fantastic. Favorite book. That's a tough one, because it was funny, because I had lunch with a colleague today, a client, and we were talking about one of the things that she was sitting there. She's like, "Oh, don't worry about being late. We're meeting for lunch. I have my book." And we got there, and we were talking about our book, and I was like, man, I was holding their book, and I was like, man, this is such a luxury to think about, like having some time to read a book, right? Like just like And what killed me reading them, like really killed my reading is when I travel, you used to not have Wi-Fi on the airplane, and you didn't have any of your devices, and so it was great. You could like just sit there and you could read your book, right?
Right.
So probably one of my favorite books, and it's going to be a toss-up, and it's going to be really dark, and you guys are going to be like, man, that's sad in a dark kind of way. But my two favorite books, and I'm going to put them both in the same category because they struggle for the title. They're both by Cormac McCarthy, and it's No Country for Old Men and The Road. Have you guys read either of those?
No, but I've seen the movie for No Country for Old Men. Great movie.
Trey, so here's what I would tell you. You've seen the movie.
Yeah, it's so good.
The Coen brothers, absolutely fantastic. The second movie, that if I had to pick a second movie, it would either be The Big Lebowski or Raising Arizona. Okay, so that's the kind of shifts, right? So different kind of genre. But so you've seen No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
All right. You got Javier Bardem as the main kind of villain in your head for that movie.
Yeah.
You need to read the book.
Okay.
Because the book is so dramatically better than the movie. And everybody says that all the time, right? Like, the book is
almost always is.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, right. But I will tell you that there were times when I read for No Country for Old Men, I did not want to turn the page.
Wow. Last book I read was like Dune.
That it's like I do not know. And The Road was the same way, in the sense that the movie The Road is terrible. Victor Morganson or whatever his name is, terrible movie. Like it's like they just sucked the soul out of that movie. They tried to do, but I'll tell you that those are two kind of favorite books. And I have a whole bunch of other ones that I would like to. Okay, so I got movie, you got books. You said favorite place,
meal, travel.
Okay, so is travel the place I want to go or the place that I've been?
I don't know. Do you think the place you haven't gone yet is probably gonna be the best place ever?
No, I want to go to Tokyo. I want to go to Japan, just because if you want to tie it to Blade Runner, it's definitely that, right? Because there is this kind of glorification of that cinematography that feels like going through the center of Tokyo. But anyway, but I think that the probably travel wise, I think probably one of the prettiest places I've ever been was a little tiny beach in Hawaii as a paradise experience, because I'd never that's not something I've ever totally removed from the universe.
Which island?
It's on Maui, and it's south of Wailea, kind of if you kind of go farther south, kind of past apparently you can drive south around Maui all the way around to Hana, but it's like it's like off-road versus going north around and going to the road to Hana, which is a kind of a very serendipitous route. I would say that's probably one of the most beautiful places that I have ever been and have ever witnessed, on the planet. That is just, it's just a remarkable kind of experience. That's probably one of the things that I can't. It's such a beauty as a place.
Yeah, Hawaii is amazing. I'd say the same thing too. I wish Lahaina didn't get burned.
And meal. So this is the part that's hard. The meal. So as having French background, the best meal ever is beef bourguignon, which is if you've ever had it, which is like a stewed beef that's in a red wine sauce that's slow simmered for a super long time with roasted either you get them with mashed potatoes or a scalloped potato, and that's probably the most, we'll call it the most quintessential meal that I can think of that is one of the best meals. But if it's a go-to thing that I could eat every day for the rest of my life, it's pizza. Pizza of any kind. I am totally nondescript in the sense of I am such a pizza-aholic in the sense that I like all the pizzas.
I was about to ask you, what's the best pizza you've ever had?
So there's two types of pizza that I will say that are and this I realize pizza and probably barbecue are the most two contentious like fisticuff level, discussions that anybody can have on the planet, right?
Yeah.
And I mean barbecue in the sense of the noun, not the verb. So it's the, is it pulled pork or whatever? So I mean, I grew up in the world of Pizza Hut pizza. That was the world that, I got pizza. And so since then, I think the best pizza I've ever had is in Montepulciano in Italy. So that's like, if we're going to go with a kind of a Neapolitan style pizza in that part of the world, best pizza I've ever had in my entire life. That's the high mark. The pizza that, if I were to argue with, is probably the most distinctive pizza in the United States, is New Haven style pizza, which is probably one of the most unique styles of pizza outside of Detroit style, Chicago style, St. Louis style, New York style, or whatever. And and if you don't know what New Haven style pizza is,
I do, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a movie. Have you seen Pizza: A Love Story?
No, but I've heard a lot of pizza reviews because it's an entertaining subject to go down, and New Haven pops up quite a bit.
Yeah. So if you want to go down and understand the cult of pizza, you watch the movie, and I think you can watch it on Vimeo. I think it's a Vimeo thing. I think they ask you for a donation for like $2 or something like that. But it's called Pizza: A Love Story.
Okay.
It will tell you, it will give you the background to anything and everything that's about New Haven style pizza. Do you guys know Justin Ivey from PHTA?
No.
He's one of the young. I don't know exactly what his title is, but he's really active in the young pool organization.
Yeah.
And Justin happens to live in Hamden, Connecticut, which is just outside. He's from that whole part of the world. Right. And Justin and I always get in these long conversations about New Haven style pizza and which are the different ones. And it's a whole cult of personality. Absolutely best. That stateside best pizza in the country.
No, I have to check it out.
Yeah, we will. We'll have to. I think the guy that owns
different.
I think the guy that owns Barstool Sports says the same thing too.
So I follow that guy. What's his name? Dave something or other.
Yeah, I can't remember his last name. It's on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, it's Dave.
Yeah.
He does all those pizza reviews. That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And that guy's really funny. I like him a lot. I think sometimes it's the interaction with the people around him rather than eating the slice of pizza that's interesting. So
yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the show as well.
Yeah, my pleasure. Listen, it's as you guys are probably well aware, I have no problem sitting around chit-chatting and talking about whatever it is that we need to talk about. This is a great forum for what I think is the important thing for what you talk about, which is engaging with the customer base that is trying to demystify us of a world that is not very oftentimes easy to understand.
No, and that's we're trying to provide a little bit of light on the subject. So anyway,
no, you guys are doing a great job, and I appreciate being offered to come back and talk about this topic.
Yeah. If you have any pictures of the one place that has the soft opening, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
you could show
I'll go and grab some stuff and see what it's going to be. Stuff I'm going to scour off their social media, and we can, if you want to, you can cite them.
Yeah,
certainly. As part of their world. Just as a kind of a, I don't want to say disclaimer, but as a kind of frame the context. Their aesthetic choices were all curated by them. So it's I think that's part of the, and it's really well done. I just want to,
no, understood.
Kind of want to talk about that. And I'm happy to share, if you want at some point that, we can talk about, I'm happy to share the floor plan and, kind of what that language is. If you want to, if that's something that you want to incorporate or however you want to do that, I'm happy to do that as well. So.
All information helps people. So anyway,
yeah,
and Trey will figure out how to do something with it.
Oh, yeah. I'll have to find a new editing software first, but yeah.
Well, thank you again, sir, and stay warm there in Nashville.
Oh yeah.
And you'll be in Atlantic City then?
I will be in Atlantic City. I fly out on Sunday. I'll be there to Wednesday. This particular experience is I'm actually presenting at the World Atlantic Health Conference not at NESPA. So I mean they're coexisting at the same time now.
Right.
But I'll be at that. And then my next event in March, I will be at an event with in Amelia Island. It's I think it's MGP, maybe. Is that right? Master Pool Guild? Is
yes.
that MPG rather?
Yeah, they typically do an event around mid-March, so that's probably them. Yeah. And
so I'll be teaching architectural styles there, and then I will be then there's the Mastermind event, which is going to be in September, which is in Fort Lauderdale. I don't know if that are you familiar with that event?
Yeah. So yes, they came up the first year it came up. It was like, oh wow, that's quick, and I'm already planned and booked. So anyway, we'll see if we'll be able to make it this time. So
that one came late in the I mean, it was well attended for how quickly it came on the scene, and it's a great venue. The turnout was really good, and the interactions were really good. And now that it's a little bit more, get some time to get it a little bit more curated and organized, I think it's going to be a really great event.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, you have a good one, sir. And
thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
You too.
Yeah. Stay warm.
Likewise.
Well, that was a fun talk. That was really, really awesome.
Yeah, Paul's got lots of insight about lots of stuff.
Yeah, the conversation was flowing pretty good. Yeah, lots of stuff is, downplaying it. We went all over the place. I think one of the best things that I liked was when he mentioned that when you're in water, I'll have to fact check this. I don't know if it's true. It sounds true, but that your skin soaks up almost a liter of water. That aspect of just like being in water. And we've been talking about, health and wellness a lot lately. And I think that's just a cool little fact, a little nugget of knowledge I didn't know that I'm going to take home with me.
Maria, that was a class that I took at the international show on wellness, and she's from Italy. And she's actually hosting a trip for people to come over there and experience some of the facilities that they have there in Italy. But that's what she said. So
it makes sense too, because like when I'm in water, like when I'm in a heavy chlorinated water, my skin gets really tight, but you still feel healthy after working out. But your skin, like it's water, but it's it's very concentrated with the chlorine, so it makes sense. What did you take home from that?
I mean, there was everything from New Haven pizza to Blade Runner to to longevity of life. The wellness aspect is not just plug and play. I mean, there are certain things you can do, but I think part of it we got into is philosophies that you need to consider modifying on how you live for you to have a good for you to live well. Now there are certain things that we can incorporate into your home environment that can help do that, but just I think the thing that he started with, just the senses and the sense of sound, and just going to sleep with the sound of ocean water, waves, it's just as simple as can be, certain things that you can do to create a better situation. So I know that Calvin enjoys his waves that he listens to every night. So anyway.
I prefer my, listening to Die Hard when I go to sleep. So.
That's probably why you're not well.
But people are a creature of habit. So, having these different amenities, whatever they might be, the sauna, the cold plunge, the pool, the hot tub, having access to that, it breaks a barrier of entry to being well. A lot of people say, fitness and health whether that be diet or fitness equipment or whatever it is. It's expensive. So it's good to know what you're spending your money on to pursue that goal to be healthier, physically and mentally. So I love this topic. It's awesome.
Well, we're going to dive into some more of it over the next couple of weeks in some more detail. So anyway, I think it was great that he gave us some more to think about.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess that might be it, right?
Yeah, well, we'll see you next week.
Adios.